Okay, I would like to call us back to order after our executive session. As we reconvene this regular board meeting, it's time for us to announce the actions we took in executive session. And to wit, we approved executive session minutes from executive sessions held on the 9th of July, 2019, and the 10th of December, 2019. In addition, we reviewed all past executive session minutes, and we concluded that from that review that it was appropriate to release to the public the executive session minutes of July 9, 2019, December 10, 2019, January 8, 2019, and October 9 of 2018. Furthermore, the board has authorized the destruction of the following executive session recordings, which are now beyond 18 months old. And that is from February 13, 2018, March 13, 2018, March 27, 2018, April the 10th, 2018, and May 30th of 2018. So, moving on. We do have a suggested modification to the agenda to move from old business, item A, I believe it was.
Yeah, item 9A.
9A, up after the, up before the consent agenda. If that would be appropriate, is there a motion to do that?
I move to accept the agenda as changed.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that carries unanimously. So we can now move to the public comment portion of our meeting. Is there anyone from the public here wishing to address the board? Seeing no indication of that, we also have some new staff introductions, which are always fun to see. Starting with aquatics.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Greetings, everyone. Hello. I'm Joseph Schmidt, the district's aquatic facilities maintenance supervisor. I'm here to introduce our newest staff member, Mr. Jacob Bragg, who is our aquatics maintenance specialist. We're very happy to have him here. Thanks.
Welcome.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
So will you be working at both indoor and outdoor?
Yes.
So they're breaking you in easy now, just.
Yeah. I get it light for a while. I'm sure this summer will be fun.
Well, Joseph has laid you a good foundation, and I think you know every nook and cranny, right? I think so. That's my theory. So you're in good. You're in good hands.
Thank you, Nancy.
Is there anything you'd like to tell us about yourself, or you?
I'm just happy for the opportunity to be here and thankful for my time here at Urbana already. It's been nice. Yeah, I just all the people that I've met and gotten to work with so far have been great. I really like the culture that you guys have built here.
Jake's been with us for a few months.
Oh, okay.
He had a conflict for the previous meetings, but in the short time he's been with us, I think he's made a tremendous difference and has really fit in with the team wonderfully, and just can't say enough about how happy we are with him.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well-
that's good.
Welcome aboard.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, and I will say, I think that we're justifiably proud of the teamwork aspect that that we have of the Park District. It starts at the top, and it encompasses everybody. LaShonda and I had an interesting discussion with one of the newer employees a couple of months ago, and she was really happy to work here, and I think she stayed with us because she felt supported by her fellow workers and her supervisor, and it didn't surprise me, but it made me very happy. And so I'm glad to hear that you feel that way as well. So welcome aboard.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. And secondly, if marketing,
I think Mark has the perfect name for marketing.
Well, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
I would like to introduce Alexis Dick. She is our new graphics and marketing specialist. She replaces Fallon Parleski, who left to take a job at another place. We are grateful for Fallon's work, and we are very happy to have Alexis come on board. She accepted the position on December 16th, not a busy time at all, but she has been with us for roughly a month, and we're overjoyed she is here.
Good.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Alexis. You can call me Lexi if you would like, or Lex, either one, or you can go with Lexis. I'm really excited for this opportunity. At my last job, I kind of worked one-on-one with my boss, so being able to work with multiple departments is something that really excites me. Some of my goals coming in are to attend more events and take more pictures. I am a photographer, so that is something that I would like
Terrific.
to be able to do is grow our photography options. Right now I'm working on the program guide and trying to lasso that horse a little bit.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and it's actually 2 days short of a month being here, and I absolutely love it, and I can't wait to see what my future holds.
Good.
Wow.
Lexi, at her prior job, put together several nice magazines and brochures, and
Good.
she said, forgive me if I put words in your mouth, one of her passions is putting publications like that together, which caused me to do a backflip of
I would have liked to have seen that, Mark.
something to behold.
Like, I mean, I mean, a wild horse is a good way to describe it. And there's a lot of lines leading into onto your desk from that. So, yeah.
That's when I work best, is when I've got a whole lot to work with. So.
Oh, that's
Good.
great. That's great. Well, so we'll look forward to seeing the new brochure in our mailboxes.
Yep.
And we'll see, there it is.
We've also asked Alexis to join our arts and culture matrix.
Oh, perfect.
Oh.
Great. Good, good.
Professionals working with us. Look forward to working
Yeah,
with
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Mark, while you're here, I wanted to thank you for the little notifications that you send out about when staff is, has been somewhere in public. I think it's really, it's good to see. I mean, especially because I'm not a TV watcher, so it was nice to see that Janet had been on WCIA, right? Yeah. So I really appreciate you doing that. That's great. It's nice to have that information. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
That makes it even better. Well, welcome aboard. We're
Yeah.
glad you're
Thanks
here.
for coming. Yes.
Thanks for coming.
For coming out.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
And next item, Urbana Park District Advisory Committee, but there was no December meeting, and I assume therefore there is not going to be any kind of report tonight. So we have moved then from old business the discussion about the and can we still call it a health and wellness facility?
I think it's a generic term.
Recreation and fitness.
When we address the IDNR staff,
So
that's
if-
what we try to use the term that
Okay.
we're more comfortable with. But really pleased to have Barnesville join us again tonight.
Yeah.
As you know, on the agenda, we have the grant-related element, but we do have updated new information. We're going to walk us through that. And
Since last Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
probably so excited to see the new work, and staff's already on board with it, so we're excited.
Okay, well, good evening again, everybody. Glad to be here. We've got a few updates for you, and why don't we jump right into it. So the first thing we wanted to show you is some updates on the design option that we all discussed in the last meeting, and really just highlight some of the specifics that we were discussing last time. So As you can see, this is just an overall view of the second floor, or I'm sorry, the second option, first floor plan. So you can see how we've broken out the different alternates, and I think what's worthy of mentioning here is alternate number 1 that's highlighted in the bottom. Can you do your little? Okay. Yeah, right there. After talking with staff, we decided that if we were to show IDNR the 5 office spaces, that they may create a little bit of caution or some concern in terms of, because they only want what's minimal to make the facility run. So we'll show that as an alternate, back it out from the IDNR submittal, the park grant submittal, I mean. Alternate number 2 is that second gym, as you can see on the upper left-hand side. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then alternate number 3 is a 2-story space that will be, on the first level, will be the multi-purpose room and a kids' play area. And we moved the space around a little bit so that it lined up a little bit better with the corridor. Excuse me. And then I think, I don't know, you can't really see it, at least I can't, the square footage. So you can see how the square footage is laid out based on the small revisions that we made. So base bid, which we will go back into pricing again, we've got some updated numbers for you there, is right over 31,000 square feet, and then you can see how the alternates break out. So if, with everything totaled up, it's 44,400 square feet. So as we go up to the next level, you can see that alternate number 1 is only a first level thing. Alternate number 2, all you really do is shorten up the track. And then alternate number 3, that you can see the second story of that space is that gym or equipment space that we talked about. So we did finally have some success talking to an equipment dealer.
That looks really bizarre. Looks
And,
like squash bugs.
we were talking about what the cost and how the equipment could be laid out in that space, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the
Right,
alternate bid.
Right, so this would be a program for the alternate bid, so this would be a more conservative number for the equipment. You can see it's they kind of give us just a really rough idea of what that mixture might be, including treadmills, ellipticals, a stair climber, some bicycles, stationary bikes, some assisted weight lifting, like controlled bench, free weights, things like that. So it's a nice little mix. Obviously this can flex and change, and depending on that flexibility, will obviously flex the cost as well.
And there are windows on the top, right? I mean,
Yep.
what is the top here?
Right,
Are
and
those
so,
windows?
and to be fair, the window placement is somewhat arbitrary at this point in time, from this layout,
Right.
but this would be north, and so that would be looking over towards the Weaver Prairie area, and then this location, we would have some windows here as well, that would look out over top of this Sled Hill as well.
Oh, good, good. So I was just more concerned about the fact that there were windows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Light and airy.
Yeah.
And I think we talked to 2 or 3 different people that do this leasing or buying of equipment. And I think the main thing that when we talked to them, the main thing we discovered is that it's very variable. There's lots of different things that can play into the cost, that can play into the lease cost per year. So that's something that as we move forward, we'll just have to hone in on. But we've got some budget numbers that we'll show you in the pro forma that reflect, I think, a reality. So.
The other thing to think about when we're talking with these consultants is from what they're seeing as leasing, they're seeing as a lease to buy option, not necessarily a rental, which we understand is what you're more interested in.
There's probably variations of options,
Okay.
is what we would assume.
So-
Variable is our assumption.
Okay.
So then if we look at what's just the base bid, or the base bid, base program, whatever you want to call it, and you can see that this is really how it works out. So we backed out alternate 1, 2, and 3, and this is what the first floor would look like. So you come in, yeah, right where Patricia's showing, and then you immediately enter the reception area, and then you have the opportunity to go into the gym, and you have that little space in the gym that's for a variety of different functions that you can use.
The point here too is to not, for the park grant, we don't necessarily want to program this space, because if you program it and say that you're going to do it in the park grant, you're then tied to saying that you need to put that space in there.
Right.
So because there is that chance for that alternate bid number 2 for the secondary gym, we decided just to leave that as just an open gym space that could be used for flexibility of programs or whatever it happens to be at that point. But that's the reason that space is kind of bare at this point in time. But if you add that second gym, you'd have that capability also to use it as a flexible space, gym space as well. So.
Patricia, on our tours, we saw a lot of gyms where they would use a basketball court for things like pickleball. So
there's a pickleball court laid out here and here as well now. So.
We also have a volleyball court and
Yep, volleyball.
I guess, lack of a better term, a half-court basketball. No, it's not even half-court. It's full court that's shortened.
Junior size court.
Thank you. Yes.
So but is it standard court from end to end as it sits now?
That's a standard high school size court, yes.
Okay.
Basketball court. Yep. And
So-
the volleyball courts are also regulation.
So you would submit this design as the base for the grant, but then the alternate, you can do whatever you want after the fact? Or does
So the way
it?
that we understand it is that the element that we're submitting for the park grant is the only element that the park grant will fund. Anything additional to that, so long as we provide everything that was stated in the park grant description and we're not leaving anything out, then it's still eligible. Everything additional is if additional funding can come in. So if a donor says, yes, I'd like to donate for the additional gym to get it in my name or something of that sort, because the park grant, we said we're including one gym, there's nothing to say that we can't have 2 gyms. But if we were to come in and say we're going to have 2 gyms, but turns out we can't get the funding, we've already promised to the park grant that we are going to have 2 gyms, and if we can't get the funding and only have the 1 gym, then there's some penalties that I can understand from being able to apply for another park grant in the future.
Yeah, so we had to design the minimum amount of space we can afford, and then we can grow from there if we bring more dollars in.
So it's really kind of grant position, to be successful on that side. It doesn't limit us from adding to the equation if we're fortunate on the support side.
So we can add, but we can't subtract.
Right.
Right.
And it's,
And this is we're going with the metal
Yes.
gym?
Yep. The pre-engineered metal building for just the gym area.
Right.
Yep. And then this is the second floor. You can see how the track overlays the gym space. And everything else pretty much stayed the same up here. We just tidied up a few things and scrunched in that exterior wall where Patricia's cursor is.
Added some storage for that flexible room also.
Yeah.
And then do note that this would be the equipment room in this scheme, whereas in the first scheme it was just another flexible space. So the intention would be is if you do get alternate number 3, this would not duplicate, it would just be relocated, and then you'd have an additional group, flex group space.
So that's the floor plans. Any questions on those?
just gonna make the comment, if anybody's wondering or anybody at home watching, certainly it's an improvement over what we're offering at Brookings.
Yeah.
While we would hope we can be successful in attracting more to the project, it's still moving in the right direction. We're improving our facilities. Obviously, we own it outright, we can operate it.
Right.
There's all those other, tangible benefits of that.
Mhm.
But just want to state that because the question could be, is this better than what we have now in size?
Oh,
and
miles.
quality?
Oh, yes.
It's much
Oh,
better.
yeah.
Much
Even if
better.
you just looked at the walking track, it would be better.
And
Yeah.
then, obviously, the third point of heavy security, we don't really have security right now as far as, our future. This would certainly guarantee us that,
Right.
assuming all
Right.
things stay
Right.
as they are.
I had a comment on the, can you go back and show me the floor plan, the first floor plan with alternate?
Alternates.
Yeah, because I wondered if there was, that little space between 9 and the gym. Is there a way just to expand up here, more to your
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
That,
Right here.
yeah, I mean, why not just, can we add those, few hundred square feet? So that the six is, room 6 and 9, essentially that space goes all the way over? So that little bare spot in there, because it'll be a nuisance to mow, it'll be, it's just, it just strikes me as functionally not a very good, I don't know, maybe it won't work, but it just seemed to me that that's not
So
the,
originally, there was a storage room here, and
Yeah.
we cut that for square footage purposes,
Ah.
for cost, but we can certainly add that back in if the funding comes. And also, the only other reason that this, core is here is
Yeah.
for future expansions later on. It would act as that transition corridor
Oh, is it, oh,
from
okay.
one to the next. But no,
Gotcha.
we can
Okay.
certainly add that back in just for mowing purposes and that thing, and.
Yeah, it just seems to me an awkward space that'd be darkened.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, in this scenario with alternate number 3, until you had the additional spaces, this would be a means of egress, so it would be paved also.
Ah, okay.
So,
Well, that would, yeah, then that's not quite so bad.
Right.
Yep, okay, thank you.
no problem. And then in option, in the base bid, it would just be straight out.
Yep,
that same door.
yeah, and that would be
And-
reasonable, yep.
In this first floor of the base bid, what is the space that was annotated as alternate 1? Is that truly going to be an indentation of the exterior wall?
So the way that we understand it is that alternate number 1, which is those 3 offices, is priority for when this project does occur. So it's my understanding that
It
this
has to
would
go
be
in.
offices.
We're fully confident we'll build those 3 offices, but for the purposes of the grant, we can't ask for them to pay for it. And this gives a very clear delineation of what we expect the grant to pay for, which is 2 offices.
But at the end of the day, physically, it's, the exterior wall is not going to take that jog back like that. And
Correct.
also
Mhm.
have
Yep.
the supported space above it.
Right.
Okay, because
Yep.
that sounds
Mhm.
expensive to do.
Right, right.
Yep,
The
yep.
grant guidelines recommended to, basically if it didn't support the direct activity of that space, you're kind of urged not to do that. So we're trying to do everything we can do to not create a flag that somebody could say, well, there's a little flaw here, let's put this one in the other way.
Yeah,
So we're trying to really play it tight.
So we got 1 athletics and 1 wellness office,
Mhm,
fitness.
The grant was so specific, it said that if you have a staff member that works part of the time here, but also supports events and other things outside the facility, it wouldn't qualify for an office. And so
Wow.
we're thinking that this. Mhm.
Wow. It's very difficult and cumbersome, but we don't make the guidelines, they do, and so we're just saying, okay, we can find a way to work with that.
Be interesting to know what the glitches were that got them to that
Right.
level, because really that's, obviously they aren't doing that just for fun, they've had a lot of bad experiences, so.
It's more of a, really tightening in on
Mm.
so that if you're in it, in the zone, you have a chance. If
Yep,
you're
yep.
perimeter, you probably don't. Yep. Given the.
They're digging all those little pitfalls for the wary, the unwary to fall into.
And we did, just so you're at the 3rd level, should we talk to DNR, try to convince it, let's follow the guidelines.
Yep,
And
yep.
then not go there, that it's very clear
Right.
what we're doing.
So this base bid comes in, as reflected in the menu, the memo, at about $6.3 million. Based upon our current budgeting projections, we think we'll have about 6.8 with donations or short of donations with fund balance with board approval. That $500,000 gives us some additional contingency in addition to the 10% contingency reflected in the $6.3 million. I think that that's useful at this point. We're still really early in design. In fact, we're having conversations with the city currently about how best we can provide access to this facility that may require more paving than we're currently projecting, so the site costs could go up as a result. So we're comforted that we have a little bit extra buffer.
Yep, yep.
Preserving the margins.
And you see so many things being built, and some of these numbers we're projecting from are from projects that are 2 and 3 and 4 years old.
Mhm.
And the construction market around here is just crazy.
Mhm.
Yep. Well, I think it's always better to err on the conservative side.
We can't
Yep.
control the bidding climate or.
Yeah, there's so
we
much.
Factor it in with their
Right.
level of work, but
Right, right.
doing everything we can do to, hit the sweet spot.
Any other questions on floor plans before we move to the site plan? Okay. So again, this is just the site plan showing the bare minimum base bid option, with the minimum parking, which we have at a count of 120 parking spaces. That was a question last time, so we got that now.
120.
Just to note that the high school ball field would remain, as well as the sled hill, and there would actually be remnant of that other ball field showing up here as well.
There's no intention of doing any kind of alternate in terms of the parking. That's, no
Yeah,
matter how
well-
big a building we put up, that's how much parking we're gonna have.
No, there's another third option of adding more parking, right?
Right, so that was the discussion that we actually had internally today with the park grant. It mentions identifying future development.
Mhm.
They mention including what's included in the scope of this particular project, existing amenities to remain, and then future development options as well. So what our plan is to submit for you guys to include in the park grant would be this base map showing the boundary of the 4.6 acres of what minimum is in the scope, and then additional graphic that shows that expanded parking as well as the additional site amenities and items as that.
Great.
So in the, I think what Michael was asking is when we did the alternates and we had square footage and eventually here we have pricing,
Right.
is that parking included with certain levels of expansion or no?
It's my, I have to go back and just confirm this, but it's my understanding when we did the pricing, it was just the base amount, or this. what you're
This
seeing.
one?
Right,
For the
right.
site.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
think
we don't
that's
have a
right.
price
That's what I'm
anywhere for
remembering.
that yet.
mhm.
Right, so those would be additional alternates.
Right.
The expanded parking that would be part of the additional site amenities is not included in the current
Right.
estimates.
Yep, yep.
We anticipate that could be a future OSLAD grant that provides some of those outdoor recreational amenities.
120 seems like a lot of cars. Does that seem?
It's a standard, I believe, is what they were telling
I mean, I
us
don't-
with the
y-
full
y-
facility.
Right, I mean, but I don't feel like you're putting in too small
Okay.
a parking. No, I mean, I don't, does that seem, I mean, 120 individuals, what would be the fire capacity, so to speak, of that space?
You know, so you have some staff parking.
Oh, well, right, I hadn't thought about that, right.
We did check the codes based on the facility, and we're actually providing more parking than is required by the city codes.
Yeah, that would be my guess,
Even
yeah.
if we built the double gym and the extra, the alternate
Exercise
three.
rooms, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't recall for sure, but it was somewhere around that 90 to 100 mark is
Mhm.
what is required.
Yeah, yeah,
And we thought just as a group when we were in the design meetings that that may be a little bit short of what is needed,
yeah, yeah.
especially based on, some of the other projects that we've worked on.
Yeah, right. What is the parking at Leonard and how does their floor space
Well,
compare to this?
A little bit different situation, but go ahead.
yeah, so Leonard, I want to say they have 40 spaces in that little art driveway right
Mhm.
out front, but then they share the lot with Shoalin
Right,
Aquatic
right,
Center,
yeah,
and I don't know how many are in that
uh-huh.
area. But there's probably, I want to say, around that 100 to 120 in that space would be my guess.
Yeah,
I thought Scott told us when they originally planned the building, they
Yep.
didn't have that front parking. They were just gonna rely on the pool parking.
ah,
And then later,
Correct.
determine we needed.
everybody wants to park by the door.
That's probably why it looks a little the way it does.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's an opportunity too for us to reconfirm with the school district that we can use this expanded lot here on
On
the
weekends.
Dr. Williams campus, but, that's a future talk. But I mean, we use it now for supporting the ball fields,
Sure.
so.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other item to mention too is that in the expanded master plan version of this, with the additional parking, I think the thought too was that parking would help serve Weaver Park and future development.
Oh, right, exactly.
So having a little bit of satellite parking in those areas
Yep.
to provide parking for some of those.
Yeah, yeah.
Think about all those kind of parking related situations, overlap times, camps, parents queuing up, all those. Buses,
Yep,
drop
yep.
off buses, so you throw that out, the more space you have.
Yeah, I don't think it's,
Parking for hours, certainly having maneuvering space and just circulation. space.
yeah, I don't think it's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a lot, but I don't think it's too much. I think it's a reasonable amount.
And then again, this would be a very quick rendition of what the base bid might look like. Pre-engineered metal building with a sloped roof.
Sloped. There's been more than one discussion about sloped roofs in my house since last Tuesday.
So,
Oh, that looks great. Yeah, I do too.
so with this option, you can see that it does not include that second gym space, and it does not include the multi-purpose exercise space on the north end, and it also does not include those 3 offices on here. So just to see what that base bid might look like, as well as just showing the 2 lanes of parking in this area.
I
Then we
think that
did
looks
want to
great.
show what it would look like with the additional gym space, and then also the multi-purpose space off the north end as well, that could overlook those park amenities.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Obviously, that's the project we need, and we need it sooner than later.
Yeah.
But we're willing to, walk through it and phase as we need to.
Now, could we phase that second gym on there? How expensive would it be to join up, to build another gym and add it on? Is that,
I don't know if our consultants have looked at that, but those are
I
some
mean,
of the
just out of the
numbers
top, off the top of your head, does it seem like a reasonable thing to consider, say, 5 years down the line, we said, we really need that?
Yeah,
That gym, is that not is it a reasonable,
yeah.
Okay.
It's absolutely doable.
okay,
And we'll go through some scenarios in a bit that are, that capture some of those costs associated with expanding.
okay.
But, yeah, it's absolutely, from a technical standpoint, not a problem to expand.
Okay, it's just the money, as always, it's
Oh,
just
yeah,
the money.
it's always-
But sometimes if you've got enough money, you can do things that are really foolish to do, but if it's not unreasonable to consider that, that's a good thought.
Right.
Okay,
And the only other thing to mention is that there was some question about whether or not the base bid would be desirable enough from what you currently have.
Mhm.
And so what's nice about this is it still is a standalone building from what you can see. It still has some curb appeal, it still has, and obviously these elevations can change depending on some further discussion with the design team and things like that. But we wanted to at least show what it would look like in massing to warrant the conversation to go up.
well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine how anybody could say this isn't any better than a gym that we're renting where it's, the roof might leak and it's only one gym and that's all we have, so,
Sure.
yeah, this really looks wonderful. There we are with parking 3.
We've got some zoomed in views here too.
So again, this is just the base bid showing a single gym, 2 offices, and then without the multi-purpose space on the north end. And then this just shows a little bit bigger what that might look like, so.
That's terrific.
Mhm.
You have done a lot in a week. That's great.
So then we wanted to just go over the pro forma and some of the costs once again. And one of the things that we thought was important to show you is we showed you this map last time of the market analysis and where all of the maybe competitive facilities are in our area. So if you go to the next slide, what we've done is we've broken this down into a table where we can sort of score each facility on how many amenities they provide, the big stuff. As you can see on the left-hand side, there's the fitness equipment, the classes, the pool, the volleyball courts, etc. And then you can see how each facility and whether or not they actually provide that amenity. And then, sorry, Trish, go to the left there. And then you can see at the bottom where it says number of amenities offered, the YMCA has 11, Parkland has 3, and so on and so forth. And then you can see how we score versus, say, Leonard, Savoy. Oh, there you go. So we're right in that 8 to 7 category, which is right on par with Leonard and Savoy Recreation
Yep.
Center.
The other thing to note with these, just for clarity purposes, for instance, Parkland might have some of these other amenities, but what's included in their membership is limited to those few items. So that's something else to
Good,
take into
good.
consideration.
So then as we zoom back out, what we also did is take a look at what the membership rates are per annual basis. And you can see in a similar fashion, actually if you want to zoom in, I see a lot of people trying to read this. So the line that you see, that orange line, is the baseline for what we are recommending, or what is similar to what Leonard is charging right now. So So you can see where the YMCA, where Parkland, and so on and so forth fall. The green bar represents what we're calling residents, and the yellow bar represents non-residents, which doesn't have there's really not a designation between most facilities, but some of the ones that we're looking at do. So Savoy and Leonard do make that designation. So you can see how each fall, and really we're well below the market rate, but we're right in line, actually lower than what Savoy is. And I think what's interesting to point out here is that Savoy's charging more than Leonard. I don't know what their membership numbers are, but Leonard is, I'm sorry, if we do just the base program, we're basically going to be providing what Savoy has with more amenities. So you can see there might be a little bit of wiggle room. I don't know, I'll leave that up to your interpretation, but.
Savoy includes their fitness classes as part of their membership, and Leonard, you have to pay extra to, like, it's just access to the facility, and if you want to do a class, you pay for the class.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a good clarification for this particular graph. This is simply memberships, and the other point of this is that if there were multiple, for instance, Planet Fitness or Charter Fitness or any of those, if they had multiple price ranges, we went with the highest range just to show what they could be charging, as well as if they had multiple group options for adult, couple, individual, senior,
Right.
child, whatever it happens to be. We just went with adults, single.
Yep, oh, that makes good sense.
Same thing with U of I facilities, there's an access fee, and then every program is an additional.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, for classes, fitness, cooking,
Gotcha, okay.
And that, at this time is our plan too, fitness classes.
Right.
We would
charge
pay
extra
for,
yep,
the
yep.
equipment would be there for them to use
Right.
as a member. And the track, and the court.
I was just saying that's probably why Savoy is more expensive, because you also get fitness classes along with your membership, whereas at Leonard, it's a lot more like what we're planning to do.
Yeah.
And actually, that's kind of why we think Orange Theory is as high as it's showing, is because we went with the highest payment, which was unlimited access to their classes. And so that's kind of why that one is standing out a little bit taller than the other ones. But
You're just a
but
little-
they have some reasonable pricing options that are available to the public as well, so.
I don't even know who they are. Who's Orange Theory?
South Neil.
Yeah, they're in the old Wendy's, right across the street from Harvest Market, or right near Harvest Market.
Oh.
They strap a heart rate monitor on you, and they show your heart rate compared to everybody else. And
Oh, great, I'd pay just to have that gone.
While you're currently working out.
It's a little intimidating.
I haven't done it. I have a family member who's a member. Yeah.
And then people take bets on who's gonna be first to keel over. Number 7 isn't looking good.
And just the one other thing to point out about the base program versus the full program, you can see that we're pretty much offering just about the same amount of stuff, except for I think this is the child's
Play.
room, child's play area, and the child care, from the full program as well. Because in the base option, there's that one room upstairs that could be used as group fitness or multi-purpose, and so you do have that flexibility and can include it in your program.
But the carrying capacity of some of the things would be a lot less in the base program.
Yeah.
So that how many people you could accommodate at a time.
Correct.
And that would affect how attractive it is for somebody to be.
Correct.
The other useful tool here is to remind us too, there's a variety of public and private options with different arrangements, different offerings. And so trying to find, how do we get the best price with the most amenities, but still leave your programming options
Right.
Open for people to select,
Mhm.
and finding that, hopefully that right spot.
Right. And our job isn't to look at the whole community, our job is to look at Urbana. We want to be providing for Urbana citizens, and that I think is, that's our, our major, at least it's my major goal.
That's really what we wanted to point out with that graphic. I think
Yeah, that's a good
great.
point, yeah.
it's helpful. So there's really not much to go over here. I think this all is really about the same information, so why don't we go ahead and go to the next slide. And if you can zoom in there was a change here. I think it's actually over to the right. I can't remember exactly when we changed all this, but I think the membership the yearly membership for non-residents went up from 130 to 135. That's really the only difference on, I think, on this page.
Uh-huh.
So you can see what the total income per year is, what we're projecting.
Right.
And if you go to expenses, that's where the next slide, that's where we had a few more little minor
And
changes.
help me out here, do we really have 900 memberships at Phillips?
Flexi passes. That's what they're counting for Phillips, because we don't have memberships.
Okay, well, that was news to me that we,
Yeah.
okay.
So we sell 900 flexi passes.
Gotcha.
Which kind of suggests ongoing membership-like
Yeah, that's a lot.
attraction.
I didn't realize there were that many.
Not do the exact same thing.
And you really think you could do 900 of those plus 950 at this new facility simultaneously? I mean, I guess that's the question, that's part of this pro forma that comes up in my mind.
I think it comes out to whether we get alternate 3
Individual.
Yeah. or not.
when you have that extra multi-purpose. If we had the other room, I think we could, for sure.
Right. So the pro forma is set up kind of towards the maximal installation as opposed to the base.
Yes, we did the performa before we really got into downsizing
Right,
for the grant.
right.
However, I also know that, a lot of the numbers that we gave for rentals and all, very conservative. I don't have, the numbers that are here, I'm not concerned about us making, and I feel we'll do better.
In terms of the bottom line dollars.
Yes, yes.
Side question over here, assumption, is it a family of 3 or 4 for the membership for that $90?
Single.
Single,
Adult.
Single.
Right.
each one individually.
Family would cost more.
Right.
It would go off of there.
And we'll have memberships, why I feel comfortable about the membership number is we had 500 and, I
Go back
forget
to
it,
the next.
562 for,
Is that what you're looking for?
no, it was like 562 pool passes for the indoor pool. I think it was on the other chart you had
Oh,
before this.
Yeah. Go back to the previous slide before this. Zoom in there. Yeah, 562.
Yeah, so we have 500, my point is, we have 562 members at the indoor pool. We are also gonna work on a membership that will combine our pool facilities with our health and wellness facility. That number is not necessarily being included, that's just saying, this facility, we think we can bring this many in. So I think the 950 that we have based on the market for that kind of facility is pretty conservative as well, based on the fact that we have other ways to attract the package.
Yep.
Kind of like the indoor and outdoor pool, I think we sell more memberships there because we have the option of a rainy day, if you buy that joint membership, you can go to a pool.
Right.
So then in terms of expenses, we did update the utility expenses. Previously we were showing 40,000 square foot for the base square footage, and we backed that down to 35, and it actually, if we go with just a base bid or the base amount, it's actually even less than that, but we wanted to pick something kind of a little bit more than that in case we decided to choose more than one option, or more than one alternate, excuse me. And I think all of that stayed the same.
The exercise equipment lease, we did rep in $20,000
Yep,
for
yep.
annual lease there as well.
And we think we can even drop that down to 15 based on what we're talking, when we were talking to the various companies. We think we can, that's an achievable number, we think.
I would point out too, it does include some allotment for the outdoor spaces too.
For maintenance.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So it's indoors cost you that, plus there's more we're tagging on later.
And we would look to contract with ESS, is that what you're thinking for General maintenance?
We do it similar to what we're doing at our rec facilities now. We have contracted ESS,
Right.
which we have a number in for. We also have Sandra, who goes
Yep.
around, so we're thinking her time that's at Brookins will come into this facility at some
Good.
point.
Mhm.
And then Derek's full-time staff and part-time staff got some time built in too.
Kind of a hybrid approach.
So we wouldn't, we wouldn't necessarily be hiring, and not, I mean, because a facility like that's gonna take a lot of people
Yep.
maintaining hours, so, okay, that's good.
And we,
Kind of our current success.
Mhm.
What we do well, we do, and then we try to get basic support
Yep.
provided on a regular, consistent basis.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
and in the customer service line, you see there's 45,000.
Cool. Very top there, there you go.
So that number, if I remember how my math worked, it's 8 hours a day, $15 an hour, 352 days a year. So that, I expect that person could do multiple tasks. So there could be monitoring the gym like you do at Brookins, and then they could be walking around and wiping down fitness equipment. So there'll be an assortment of how that works.
So then as we go into the pro forma itself, you can see how this breaks down. And really, the income numbers and the expense numbers that we just told you updated are really the only differences on how this is laying out. But as I just wanted to reiterate that year one, we've assumed only half a year of expenses and half a year of income. Every other year is a full year, and with some modest increases to each category.
Cork and I have talked about this, and, you know, with the bottom line being a deficit of a little over 50,000 a year growing, but we're spending almost 50,000 a year to rent Brookins, and it has property tax, the athletics budget has property tax support of at least that amount. So, you know, we're expecting, as long as Brookins goes away, we won't have that lease payment anymore, and that could move over here to help support this facility. So that deficit doesn't concern me. And I think because all of the numbers that Corky provided and the numbers that we're using are conservative, I hope, you know, that we can only perform better than what these expectations present. So, I mean, time will tell, but I think we've done a pretty good job being conservative.
And, I mean, in terms of, if you were to do the actual full-blown numbers for what we're spending at Brookins and what the programs are bringing in, and you take all that offline, that surely we're putting a fair amount of money in there in total.
Yeah, the ultimate goal here, and as we're working daily on fixing things, my ultimate goal is once we get this where we want it, which it looks like we're getting there now. My goal, and I've already had Katie run me a report. I'm going to combine both athletics and the wellness budgets. That will tell us where we're at. Because, I mean, that's going to be the true picture, because there's tax dollars in a bunch of different areas throughout wellness. And if you're improving the number of people that are using our wellness programs, that's going to make it so the wellness area doesn't need as many tax dollars. And so, you know, and the thing I've told Derek for a while on this is that our two areas that really hold their weight in budgets is athletics and wellness. So I feel really, when Scott was a little nervous, he goes, I hope these numbers don't scare you. And I'm like, those numbers are great.
50,000 here, 50,000 there. What's our current lease situation with Brookins? I've forgotten what the.
We spend about 55,000 a year on our lease for Brookins, and about 5,000 of that is for the storage area. So the other 50 is for the gym and the athletics and marketing offices.
And our lease runs out?
2021.
June of 2021.
So we're kind of working within a good time frame.
Okay, good.
I haven't seen the detailed numbers, but let's get serious. We're putting real tax money into the capital expenditure of the building that we're gonna put up here.
Right.
There is money, but if we can't put up a building that can be run less expensively than Brookins, we've done a really poor job.
Yeah, I hear, yeah.
And I don't know how you reflect that in the pro forma, but if we can't beat the utility costs and have a more efficient operation for the money that was coming in, then we've failed the public badly.
But I think with our lease at Brookins though, I mean, we don't pay any utilities at Brookins.
None at
And,
all.
no,
Okay.
it's all included in our lease payment, and the county has told us, at least when Deb Busey was still there, that they've drastically undercharged us for our lease, and
No,
that,
but they
that if we
have.
go to renegotiate, that they were gonna be
were gonna
increasing it a
want
lot.
some,
So I
sure.
think we were gonna see that increase no matter
Some-
what.
One way or another.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's be clear, we're putting a lot of tax money in to the structure itself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a conscious decision. If we actually get the grant and move forward with this, I sure would hate to see a big spike in also what it costs to run it, the program.
I hear what you're saying, and I believe our revenue numbers are very conservative. For example, on our numbers, just to give you an idea, I think we added in $9,000 for sports camp. You take that $9,000 on top of what we budgeted, and we brought in more money this year for sports camp at Brookins. So I'm very conservative on the numbers because a new facility, a nice facility with more options is going to bring in a lot more interest into sports camp. That's already pretty popular.
Right, right. And we're offering things that we're not offering now.
Right.
There was a mention about the storage. What will happen to the archive? What will happen to all the archival material that's currently at Brookins?
Ooh, what
I'm
a,
thinking is, that's the two nuances things I was gonna mention. One is we either need to relocate the storage or stay there long enough till we find a better arrangement. One of the ideas we had recently just in discussion was perhaps moving to one of the storage spaces here above the garage area.
We created some loft space here that was designed, if we added a floor, we could use it for storage. It's currently not serving any function, so it would require a little bit of architectural investment, but it's part of the design.
I think some things we noted, while we're grateful to be at Brookins and it works because we have staff,
Yeah.
we wouldn't probably just choose to stay there. You know, that space itself isn't, great space. and successful.
well, it's very limited.
Yeah, and so we do have some cost in either, like Derek said, renovating, finding a new space or another lease arrangement.
Well, and we were renting a storage unit for all of our records before we.
Oh, yeah.
started. And actually, that was cheaper than renting the space at Brookins. But the space at Brookins allowed our athletic staff and our marketing staff to store some things there as well. So it'll be nice with the new facility, the athletics and marketing kind of, or, you know, those types of storage can move to the new facility or to other facilities. And the archival portion, if it needs to be a storage unit or here, so there's options.
Yeah, yeah.
The other point is if we overlap, let's say we get the grant, we move forward with construction, and our lease runs out, we may need to have an overlapping lease for the time. we,
Sure.
You know, transition months, you know, just
Right.
depends on the timing of everything. So
Right.
it could, I guess what I'm saying, worst case scenario, you might have some lease costs, so you could relocate yourself, but hopefully that'd be temporary and a minimal amount of time to sort of pay your way out of that.
On the pro forma numbers, can you just clarify like the year 1, year 2 for me?
Yeah, so year one, since likely construction is not gonna end in January, what we've done is we've just, again, conservatively said, we'll be able to attain a year's worth of revenue, or, excuse me, half a year, 6 months worth of revenue, and we'll have 6 months worth of expenses. Year two, obviously, we're gonna gain a full year of the expenses and revenue, so that number you see in the year two column reflects the exact numbers that we showed you for the total expenses and total income. And then as we increase year 3 through 10, we've given several of the categories modest increases for inflation or just general increases in utilities, whatever the case is.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, think we opened any of our buildings on a fiscal year cycle.
Right.
You know, just
Yeah.
due to the timing of construction.
We can't open till the 1st of May because that's,
Right, exactly. Not too much.
right, right. 3 months, we can,
Well, obviously, that was different because it's a summer operation, but it was July. We're a little bit late.
Right.
And there's delays, often with construction, so kind of taking that half-year approach, we could perform better or worse, depending on what was that first partial year.
So, I think as we talked about before, the pro forma does not include the cost to construct the facility and to
Right.
design the facility and all of the infrastructure that goes into construction. So what we've tried to do here is paint a couple of different scenarios that could happen based upon the funding and what's available for resources. And the first one we wanted to show you is actually the last one on our slides and probably the last one in your packet, so I apologize for that. But this is the base program that we showed you that just had the one gym and no alternates. And you can see how that we already showed you the floor plan on that, so there's nothing really different with that. But you can see that the number, if you scroll to the right just a little bit, Patricia, is just under 6.4 million. So that's what Derek was saying. Even with that 10% contingency, we're right about $500,000 below the 6.8 that we discussed at last board meeting. So base bid, or the base program is what we can, you can see what that will cost.
Roger, can you remind me what the, did you say that there was one of the fitness facilities that has a walking track is about equivalent to the size of this one?
Yeah, actually, the walking track at the Y is virtually the same size.
Okay, all right. So it wouldn't be a super burden. I mean, people
No.
wouldn't feel like they were on a hamster wheel in here. There are other places who have.
Well, you always feel like you're on a hamster
Right.
wheel. But no, and I, my preference would be to have 2 gyms.
Yeah, yeah.
The Sycamore track that I walked had 2 gyms, and that was I liked having the
Mhm,
extra
mhm.
space, but it's space, and
Yep.
such space does not exist in Urbana. So-
Right, exactly, okay. But it wouldn't, that had.
And it's
been
not
sort of-
no, it's, there are lots of people using that track at the
Okay.
Y, so.
So it's a bearable,
Yes,
even though it's small, it's a
absolutely.
bearable size.
Yes,
Okay.
you just have to keep track. Yes.
We could sell little bracelets that had like an abacus for,
Yeah.
every 10 laps you could move a beat.
So then this next scenario is just a modest increase in square footage, as we've already discussed. It just includes alternate number 1, which is those 3 offices. And you can see we bump up to 6.4, 6.5. If I'm doing my math right, it's about $100,000 increase.
Mhm.
So then we ran
That's
another
really not
scenario
bad.
where we do alternate 1.
Hang on just a second.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of ways, doing the base bid makes the most sense for the grant, but it looks like it would be so easy to do alternate 1 that's probably what we're gonna do.
I'd
so.
say we almost have,
We almost have to,
because
yeah.
we've got 5 offices that
Yeah,
are being
yeah,
used at Brookins,
yeah.
so
So basically.
it's really not an option.
Basically, we're
We don't
going
have
to
anywhere
do
to
it,
put
we're just
people.
not going to show it on the grant.
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
No, good question. So then the next scenario we ran is alternate 1 and alternate number 3.
So still just 1 gym and these other 2, right?
Correct.
Okay,
So you can see we're a little bit over budget there.
Yeah.
yep.
So then we ran alternate 2 and alternate number 1. And again, we're over budget, but
So it's about the same?
A little more.
A little bit more, yeah.
yeah,
Little bit
we
more.
were
A
more.
couple $100,000.
the last scenario we ran. And then this is the whole kit and caboodle, and 8.3.
That's it.
Yeah.
Gonna be an interesting dialogue to determine between alternate 2 and 3 where our higher priority would be. Obviously, more gym space provides capacity to have 2 full court games. The alternate 3 may drive membership more. So that's something that we'll want to talk about carefully, assuming we have success in fundraising. And it may be that fundraising determines it. It may be that one of our fundraisers wants to fund alternate number 3
Right.
as a naming opportunity, or one would rather do the gym as a naming opportunity.
Yeah.
I think
They might just want to put on a gym, they didn't care about the name.
we've
You never
had some
know.
talk over the last week on the gym space, and I think one thing to remember about my preference, if we couldn't get everything, would be to do alternate 3 versus expand the gym. And the reason why is there's still a lot of value in that side gym. In fact, we were talking, we think that it might be close to big enough for like pickleball courts, a junior court, so that would give us 3 junior courts, which is our biggest program area. For basketball is the youth, the junior, 3rd, 4th grade, younger kids, 1st, 2nd. The other thing about that space is that can be more of a open space if the main court is being programmed.
Yeah.
So members, we could put hoops up on the ends,
Yeah,
and people could go over there and shoot baskets, maybe play a shortened version of half-court basketball. But there is an option for people to be able to use that side space, even if the main courts are being utilized. Alternate 3 gives you, it makes you have that 8th item with the kids' play area.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot nicer, larger exercise area, and it now provides 2 group fitness rooms. So the way
Yeah.
it could drive membership is you probably get more bang for the buck by doing this. Another thing was like sports camp, with the extra side gym, that could be their base.
right.
That's a big enough space where, they can do things there. So we feel that courts, while we'd love to have the whole program, I really think that alternate 3 provides more bang for our users. But
Couple of logistic points too, I think, from a donor strategy, it looks like you need some help. You look at that diagram, it's not hard to imagine the other court. So I think at least being able to visualize some of
Mhm.
with a naming opportunity, it helps.
I
In that
think
respect, you know what I mean, like,
it seems a bigger space.
right. And so
Bang for, because was it $1 million to do the alternate 3 and $500,000 to do the second gym? Is that right? Is that what I'm?
it's about 200,000 apart, I think, or 100. What was it, 7.2 and then 7.4?
Yeah.
That's
So
just,
it's just a little over 200,000, 2.25.
The difference is a couple hundred thousand.
Which is the one that's the most expensive?
The one with the additional gym.
Yep.
Uh-huh, right.
So it's 210,000 more to leave alternate 3 out and do the gym.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think people would rather give money for a gym. There's something about the appeal of I gave a gym as opposed to I gave a room with some exercise rooms. That's,
Or you've got the ability to provide it, but you're just looking for help. I think this looks like, I think it could be very appealing.
I would think so.
From that perspective,
Mhm.
Is the donor feeling fulfilled, that they've made a major contribution, so.
Right,
I
yep.
think that's true. The other, back to Corky's point about that side space, one challenge at Leonard, I played the adult volleyball, there's no practice warm-up while the team's playing.
Oh, sure.
On the
Mhm,
court,
mhm.
There's nowhere, so you're in the way, or people are bouncing balls right next to the active court.
Oh, yeah, which would be really a distraction. Yeah.
Now, eventually, if you get to that, then we'll be in that situation also, or, have to find
Right,
an
right,
arrangement
yeah,
for
yeah.
that, but it's not a bad thing to have that warm-up queuing.
No,
warm-up
I
practice
agree.
space on the side for other programs.
The alternate 2 doesn't double the amount of gym space. It's
Right.
an important.
It's
part of this.
half of a gym,
Right.
more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the packet, the second to last page, I did I did create this fund balance graph that I
Oh,
promised
mhm.
last week. Because Derek brought the other budget information last week as well, but basically of that 6.8 million, we're counting on about 1 million of it coming from fundraising.
Right.
And if we don't meet those fundraising targets, we're expecting that we may need to use fund balance to make up the
Right.
difference. So I just wanted to assure the board, if you look at this chart, you can see our actual fund balance is almost $500,000 above the maximum target. So even taking 1 million out of it would just kind of get us back into the range. So I'm comfortable with that number. So as we move forward with the fundraising, but I just think the chart illustrates it well and
Right.
just gives you a glimpse at what that looks like and why we started the discussion there.
And that's if we raised no extra money.
Correct.
Right.
Then we'd still be able to hit
It's,
that.
yeah, and it's a
28.
comforting thought. It's kind of like we know that there's extra money under the couch cushions.
A little bit.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
little bit though, but
Right.
not, you know, it's
Well,
not.
I wouldn't mind having that much money under my couch cushions.
Yeah, but I mean, there's enough to fill a $1 million gap, but not enough to get our full program.
Sure, right, exactly, but
So
still.
if there's other fundraising though, we still may be able to utilize this in
Right.
addition, but we kind of have to
Yep.
wait and see what happens,
Right.
so.
But it's just nice to know that it's there.
There's a reserve if we happen to get a really attractive bid on one of the
Yes.
alternates.
Right.
then
Right.
You
Yes.
could
Mhm.
maybe stretch a little bit and grab a bigger thing.
Other questions, thoughts? You know, hope is to keep working toward that grant goal, meeting that budget, having an opportunity to fundraise and add to the budget if we're successful, and ultimately deliver at least a workable facility for Urbana.
Right.
That's something we grow into.
I think so. You've done a great job.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank
I mean,
you.
and I would say that even if there was that slanted roof, I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with that roof. But I like the looks of the building. It has much more sort of curb appeal in today's presentation, and I know that's a minimal part of what you've done, but it's just representative, I think, of how much thought you've put into it. So thank you. I'm not going to worry about Jim's space tonight. Oh.
So
Wake up. Time to wake up. Yeah.
there is an action item associated with this agenda item, and that is the
Yes.
the resolution to approve of applying for the
Right, right.
grant.
Oh.
Yes. And
Yes.
Is that your motion? Yes.
Yeah. Are you
Okay,
ready for the
where are we
motion?
here?
I think, where we left off, last, maybe this old business was, we couldn't but
Yeah.
Right.
exactly determine all of the parameters of the dollars, so that was the direction the board gave us.
Yep.
We started working back with the team, came
Yeah.
back tonight, and we have that, so that's on the agenda.
Right. So we need the motion to approve the resolution
Can-
2020-01 for the
Was-
park grant.
Was Exhibit A included in the packet? And which piece of paper is it? Because it's certainly referenced in the resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the,
I think it was included.
Or was that in the study session?
Yes, and it's included in the signature file, and all of it was in the packet last week,
Yeah,
but I don't think it is in this one.
okay. And none of those numbers have changed? Okay. 'Cause certainly the numbers they've worked up have changed, and we surely want,
Because the resolution, here's Exhibit A. It just talks about the acquisition price of the property, and then it doesn't actually, give numbers of the project, but it's a commitment that we can afford it.
okay. That's,
Because I think that was your question, Michael, do we have definitive proof that we can afford?
yes, yes.
We
Right.
couldn't tell you guys last time.
That's time, okay, and I had, well, no, I mean, I had just forgotten that it did not actually contain numbers. It's merely our assertion that we're acting in good faith and affirming that we can do that, okay. I think the other board members ought to get a chance to look at that if they would like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
LaShawna needs to
Yeah,
see it.
LaShawna.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we just wait, you want to wait till she's finished reading before we're?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, this is a big commitment. I'm certainly comfortable going forward with the additional detail we've had tonight, but,
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
You did it, okay. All right, so I move that we approve Resolution 2020-01 for the park grant application for the Urbana Indoor Recreation and Fitness Center. That's what we're calling it, right? Recreation and Fitness Center. Okay.
Second.
that's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the point? Hearing none, let's take a roll call vote, starting on the right.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously with the 4 commissioners present, all voting. So,
Thank you.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Yes, and thanks for all that work. If this all comes about, we'll have to let them be the first ones in the building, or, they can have the first run and choice of treadmill, or, yeah, something special. First hoops, yep.
Landscaping party's what I was thinking.
They'll be so,
A landscaping party?
Oh, yeah,
yeah. You won't be so sick of it by then, you'll say, "Ugh." Never drive by that again, too soon.
Okay, we're now back to our original agenda, dealing with our consent agenda. And on the consent agenda for this evening is the approval of the minutes of the December 3rd study session, approval of minutes of the December 5th joint board meeting with the Champaign Park District for the CU Special Rec, approval of the minutes of the December 10 regular board meeting, receipt of the monthly departmental reports, approval of the monthly paid accounts payable, and approval of commissioner travel, meal, and lodging expenses, with Nancy attending the IAPD conference in Chicago. And I think that's the entirety of what is on the consent agenda for this evening. It is the purview of any single commissioner to remove any or all of these items from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Is there a desire on anyone's part to do that? I see no indication of that. And do we have a motion to approve all the items on the consent agenda in an omnibus fashion?
I move that we approve all of the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in an omnibus manner.
Second.
That's moved and seconded, and under our rules for the consent agenda, there's to be no further discussion at this point. So let's take a roll call vote, beginning on the left with Luciana.
Aye.
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 And that carries unanimously. So we're on to reports, starting with financials.
Hello. I'll be presenting the financial reports through December of 2019 for the Park District. For the first page of this report, I'm going to go over the revenue and expenditure report for the district. This report presents the revenues and expenditures for the prior fiscal year, the budget for the current fiscal year, and the year-to-date balance through December 31st. We had revenues through December 31st of $10,836,000. And we had expenditures of $9,743,000. We have a excess of revenues over expenditures at this point in the year of $1,093,000. We're 8 months into the year, so we're kind of in our dwindling down period at this point. At this point, we've made all of our major bond payments. We've gotten through all of our busiest season, and we kind of coast. We've received all of our property tax payments for the most part. There might be a couple trickling in at the end, but we did receive our final property tax disbursement for the revenue year, but there's a couple like mobile home tax and U of I and a couple little itty bitty ones that come in, which is why we're only at 93% for property taxes. I think that'll probably wind up closer to 98 by the time we're done. And the treasurer's office is just moving very slow. Normally, we would have received all of those by now. Last year, we received the very last dollars in January. But in prior years, under Dan Welch's tenure, it was November, was always the final disbursements.
Oh, wow.
So it's already lingering a little bit. And then with all the changes happening now, I don't know what the schedule is going to be to roll any of those out. But we did receive our final actual property tax disbursement, though. So all of the regular ones have been received. So that's good to know. Anyway, so like I was saying, so January through April is just kind of a coasting period where we continue to just basically spend down our excess of revenues over expenditures until we get back to May again when we start receiving property taxes and when we ramp up all of our programs for the new year. So that's what you'll continue to see. We had a budgeted deficit for the Park District as the operating funds of the Park District as a whole of $684,680. You can see, and right now we have a excess of revenue of over $1 million. So we've still got like over a $1.5 million gap that we coast through here. So that's plenty, and usually we'll come out about even. So as it gets closer and closer, we'll have a better idea. But everything seems on track to me, and nothing's out of the ordinary. So. That's good to know. The second page is where we have the most dramatic change. This is the Capital Improvements Fund only, which is excluded from page 1 of that report that we just looked at. So this is looking only at the Capital Improvements Fund. We have revenues of $7,494,000, which you can see we received bond sales of $6,769,000, which was both the Series 2019A alternate revenue source bonds and the general obligation bond series 2019B. So those two added together equal that $6,769,000. So we received both of those on December 23rd. And we currently have expenditures in the Capital Improvements Fund of $540,000 with excess of revenues over expenditures of $6,954,000. So this fund is also quite strong at the moment. We're gearing up for some major spending on Crystal Lake, which I'm sure Andy might be touching on tonight, but working on getting the bidding out and all of that so that we can begin a construction phase this spring and summer. So I do expect we will do quite a bit of spending. We budgeted to have about $2 million deficit in this fund to spend down some of the fund balance that's in this fund. I don't know if we'll make that with all the new money that we've brought in, obviously not, but I don't know that we'll have another $2 million of spending between now and April 30th, but it just kind of depends on how the construction progresses. So we'll see. And then we'll budget again to spend it next fiscal year then. The whole goal of this fund is to spend it all, just to remind you. So sometimes it has big swings and deficits and increases. So the district-wide page 3, it just adds the first 2 pages together. And you can see at this point in the fiscal year, we have a ending fund balance for the whole district of $15,310,000. It's probably the biggest it's ever been. It might be. I mean, yeah, it might be. When we received those other 2 big bonds, it probably was a big swing as well. You know, if we hadn't finished spending on the first one when we had received the second one, I'd have to analyze that. But it's, you know, we have a really healthy fund balance just of our operating funds too. So then add the new bond money to it, and it's pretty healthy. So
That's good.
yeah.
It's nice to not have to worry.
Following that page are the operating funds, the general fund, the recreation fund, the museum fund, and the indoor pool. I'm happy to answer any questions about those individual funds,
They look good.
but they all look good to me.
Yep.
The next report is the treasurer's report. This report lists all of the funds of the district with where the monies are invested. We have total investments, cash in the district of $17,270,262.59. On page 2 at the top, it lists our interest-bearing accounts where we're holding monies. There's been some changes to this period as well because I opened last month with the board's action. I initiated opening the accounts with IDP LAF Plus, IPTLAF. So you could see they're also now listed. So I went ahead and kept the ones that we used to call Park Pool are on there too. We have monies there as well. And then I named the new ones Series 2019A. So we have our money market account, which is basically just a liquid account that we can spend now. And then I worked with Derek and Andy after we received the bond monies to create a drawdown schedule of how we expect the monies to be spent. It's a pretty rough idea, but just as the Crystal Lake and the health and wellness facility projects ramp up and how they taper down over the 3-year period that we have to spend the bond money. And I worked with IFTLAF staff, that is how they say it when they answer the phone, to invest $3,390,000 in CDs, and they're laddered out like 1 year, 15 months, 18 months, and they just keep going for about, I think, 2 or 2.5 years. And as they mature, we'll reanalyze whether to reinvest them or not. So we'll just see like where are we at with those projects? Do we need this money now? And again, like we kept $2.2 million liquid right now, so we're ready to start spending on Crystal Lake or whatever's coming up now. So that seemed like a pretty comfortable number. So anyway, of that 17 million that we have on hand, 15.7 million is invested in interest-bearing accounts. And there were no changes to interfund loans this period, just the standard ones. And our total disbursements of funds for this period on the page 3 were 2,162,000, and 1.6 million of that was our bond payments. So we still made our regular bond payments on the 2010 and 2011 bonds by their December 15th deadline. And then when we received the bond money on the 23rd, the portion that paid off the 2010 and 2011 bonds were paid on the 24th. So now those bonds are paid off, but we still owed that last payment in December from the interest that accrued over the prior 6 months. So that's what that big chunk of money was. And then the only other odd thing, or kind of not odd, but kind of out of the ordinary thing in the disbursements section was in the land acquisition fund, where we paid the last of the contract for the demolition of the Main Street properties, the $27,000. And with that, I present the treasurer's report for your approval.
I move we accept the treasurer's report for audit.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Okay, well, our capital budget reports are multiplying. There are so many now. But it's a really great way to keep track of all of our projects, and we have a lot of parts moving. So let me just walk through these. There aren't a whole lot of changes in the first couple, but you can see I've established a capital budget for the Series 2019A alternate revenue source bonds. So we received the $5.934 million in bond funds on December 23rd, and we've already spent $45,000 on our bond counsel, so that came out of the cost of issue. And that's all that's occurred in that budget thus far. We're going to be, basically, we created 2 giant lump sums of contingency, one that's kind of contingency for Crystal Lake and one that's contingency for health and wellness. And as we actually assign contracts to that money, we'll list it out. So you can see, like, if we have a construction contract for the next phase of the lake or whatever, that'll get spelled out, and it won't just be this giant lump sum. You'll see those actual amounts that you've approved for those contracts start to be spelled out. But for now, we just kind of evenly split those monies into those 2 categories while we make those final plans. On the next page, this is the new 2020 capital budget that you also approved last month. So there's already a change because we received more bond money than we were originally anticipating because of the favorable interest rates. So whenever we do our next revision, we'll go ahead and work that out. But we received $835,000 in bond money, and we've already paid those bond counsel folks, Chapman and Cutler, $5,000. They are quick. They were like, "Can you get us our money?" And I said yes. So we're all set there, and we're ready to start spending in all of those areas as well. There was a lot of movement in the 2019 capital budget. This is kind of the one that we're really working on spending right now. We had revenues in tributes And we also received our regular December disbursement from the foundation. So that hit several of these different budget lines in these budgets. One of those areas was that they contributed to our mobile stage, the graphics and the sound system. So they contributed $8,000 towards the purchase of that unit. And so we received that in December. And we thank them very much. We had spending in the technology line. A laptop was purchased. We had spending in operations, small equipment. And I believe that was actually for wear mats that go on playgrounds underneath. I think that got charged to this line. We had spending on hardscapes and fencing, which was for some fencing that Matt Balk purchased. Can't remember exactly what. Additional spending on Meadowbrook House repairs, although that's dwindling down at this point. And then we paid another invoice on the rock riffle project for the saline. And we also had another payment towards the Leo Park improvements to the contractor that's working on the parking lot. And we also paid for the feasibility study, another payment towards the feasibility study to Farnsworth, who presented to us tonight. Down in the Crystal Lake Park improvement section, we had a small amount of spending towards the Illinois American Water grant that we received. And that looks like that was it for the 2019. Getting a little foggy. In the 2018 budget, again, we received a large lump sum from the foundation here, and this was for a donation for the Meadowbrook Park Gateway that was from the WITS. And so since that project is now complete or almost complete, we've requested those funds from the foundation to be transferred to us. So we received that money, and we appreciate the WIT's generosity. In addition, on the expenditure side, there was spending on the Meadowbrook Gateway project, and there was spending on the Ambucks Park improvements. There was just the last of that donation was spent on other improvements at Ambucks Park, I think related to those wear mats as well that we could use on the playground. And then we had some water quality spending at Crystal Lake. In the 2017 budget, there was only two items of spending. This is the current budget that we're using for construction crew projects. So this is the budget that Keith's working out of right now. So that's where he's spending up top. And then down at the bottom, there was spending on Crystal Lake. And there was no activity in the 2016 budget. We're just kind of saving this up for when we enter into that big phase of spending for Crystal Lake.
Yes.
Now Andy and Derek have capital updates.
Yep. Katie, as you mentioned, the Lake Rehab project, big priority. This week we're finalizing our plan and bidding documents with ERA, hoping to have our project advertised by the end of this week, maybe early to mid next week. And then that would anticipate a March board action for the construction for the phase 2 lake rehab. Derek has coordinated another information meeting opportunity with community members associated with our natural areas group and the Audubon Society, and that'll be taking place Thursday evening. So primarily we'll be going over some planting, the updated planting plans, and then just kind of overall impacts to the park that can be expected with a pretty large scale construction project soon to be underway. Leal, the parking expansion, we actually had the archaeologist group out on site today, and they were working with Keith from our staff, was actually the equipment operator. Just kind of peeling back a little bit more and more layers of soil, probably not even another foot what was already been excavated in total, just working within what would be the potentially future parking lot and then that connecting pathway. They weren't able to fully finished today, but there was nothing turned up at the site that would require additional
Good.
level of review at this point, but there's still some more work to be done. And ultimately, the group that's out there now is really just collecting the information. They'll put it in a report that will then be sent to the state. And then the final determination of the site would be done by the state, not the group that's out there currently. So
Interesting job to have, huh?
They did come across 2 headstones, but no grave shafts. So it appears things got distributed in the park post burial, and
we found an old garbage patch.
Oh, that's always interesting.
Yeah, they actually got the sifters out for that, and we're kind of digging and then putting it in and letting it. That's the way they described it was basically they dug a hole, put some garbage and junk in there. I mean, it was like canned parts, pottery, whatever. And I asked, like, well, this is nothing like significant, right? And he's like, no, it's not even that old, probably. So, but I mean, it was at least 3. I mean, they were down like 4 feet probably in that hole. So.
Okay.
Oh, so did they have a sense of how old it was?
He didn't think it was. My impression was he thought it was newer than the cemetery.
Okay.
Right. So if they'd had a keeper in the cemetery and he'd had a shed there, he could have buried his garbage.
Could be. Yeah.
Contractors building the
Could have been someone. Yeah.
We see contractors with a bunch of garbage and things like that, so I'm interested in that.
I'm trying to, we had a time when we went out, and I'm trying to remember where we were. If it was at Judge Weber or someplace we were in a ravine. Remember we found all those bottles?
back here.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right,
right
that's
up
right,
there.
it was back here. Right, yeah, I still have some of the stuff in my windows. I mean, very interesting bottles.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's right, it was back here, yep. So you never know.
So at this point, the connecting path from the parking lot to the cottage is what's left to be investigated. We feel pretty good about the parking lot. Now, of course, the report has yet to be generated and delivered to the state, but at this
Right.
point, good news.
Good,
Oh,
great.
My understanding is that if he would have seen something within the parking lot today that would have given an impression that there may have been there's an actual burial there, work would have stopped today.
Yeah.
They would have notified the state, and then we would have been in another level of review, and we're not at that point
Yeah. Or hurt.
at this point today. So
so what kind of turnaround can we expect?
I don't
Or-
know.
or
I was
do
told
we
by,
even know?
by a state employee at one point to always say 8 weeks. So that's.
8 weeks. They probably don't have a lot of other, I mean,
I
it's
don't
winter
know.
time.
I
How
really
much
don't know.
could they have in
Okay, that's
That's fun.
8 weeks is good enough for me.
The saline habitat enhancement, I think last time we met and I gave an update, they had finished most of the rock structures, but still had another riffle to complete. They actually completed all of their structures within the saline before Christmas. And the week after Christmas, they kind of cleaned up their part of the site. They'll be back in the spring to continue with any sort of landscaping work. And we'll continue having discussions with IDNR on the best way to use any remaining contingency funds for the project, which would likely be just invasive species removal along that saline portion there as well.
Probably just a few in there.
So it's pretty much buttoned up for the next couple months for now.
Good.
And so is Perkins Road, the Phase 3 restoration. Contractors kind of closed that down due to site conditions until the spring. And then once he's able to get his crew back in, as weather permitting, it's a challenging site with water there.
Yeah.
They have a little bit more topsoil they need to place and finish up the grading in just one small section, and then they'll have the full landscaping, and then working the gravel road as well needs to get done. But,
That's good progress back there.
yeah.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? Thanks very much. Moves us on to the Executive Director's report.
A couple of things, just to keep us current. Wanted to thank the board, UPDAC, and the foundation for the rapid, quick response working with staff on the help board, commissioners all working in the same direction is within really literally a few months. Now with UpDeck, certainly we had preliminary planning, we went to visited sites, so, but really getting them on board, we're gonna do this, we need your help and support, they really dialed in on that same thing. Board of Commissioners, I know there's a lot of working boards that just can't move that fast or have so many information needs, and, you know, I think you guys saw the opportunity and we've done good planning and got us in a position. And the foundation, Ellen and I met with sort of the executive leadership to talk about formally request that they would help us fundraise for this project. And I think what we're going to plan on doing at the February meeting, because the January meeting was canceled due to holiday schedules, is present our report that we shared with you all in December about what our capital needs are, just in general so they're aware, but talk specifically and make the presentation of the health and wellness to formally request and get everybody on board to start fundraising. So obviously I think we have a great project and we have a lot of potential, so we'll see how things go. But thanks to everybody. I don't think we could have got to where we are tonight if we would have had slowdowns or challenges or just we need to know more and we're not going to move fast. And so we do appreciate that because, as we know, the park grant is a very quick program. It's got a lot of tight parameters and we're trying to navigate that as quickly as we can. Staff's done a great job also. Speaking of grants, today our IDNR grant administrator, Kathy Barker, came over to Urbana, a special trip. She brought National Park Service employee, a colleague of hers, Susan Otsby. Susan's in charge of 7 Midwestern states and oversees the Land and Water Conservation Grant Program. And so I think the reason Kathy brought her here is because our district has a rich history of implementing. I think we had 7 or 8 grants at Crystal Lake Park or throughout the district, primarily at Crystal Lake Park. So to be there with Susan and walk her through and see what was done many years ago and where we are today was very rewarding. As she shared with us, you know, they know about the projects from reports, but getting out in the field
and seeing it.
Come together is really powerful. I learned a few things too. That program was started, I think they said in 1965. In Illinois, up until about the early mid-80s, it was used for open space acquisition and facility development. But then Illinois, I think, is the only state, if I'm correct, that switched. So it's only open space. So that's how we built the Nature Center originally, Crystal Lake Pool.
Lake House.
Today we couldn't do that. We could apply for funds at Weaver Park, you know, to acquire property, but we couldn't build a facility due to Illinois. Now we have OSLAD and a few other grant programs, so they said each state, she said, each state has a little bit different approach. So we're encouraged by that. And also, I think when we looked at a few, they reminded us that individual parcels can be purchased through that program. So if we were trying to enlarge a park, we could certainly make an application for to use that grant program, something I hadn't really been thinking. Now, having said that, it is an intensive grant program. It costs you some money to do it. So sometimes to buy one piece of land, it's easier for us to use capital dollars or land acquisition funds. But it was a good reminder to hear that if you're trying to piece something together and you want to use that as a tool, there's no restrictions on doing it that way.
You need a seller who can wait.
There's a time, a lot of other requirements, but example, Oak Park, they use the example, it's landlocked park district. They have no future ability because they're surrounded by other cities. So when a lot goes for sale, they tend to be very expensive. You know, park, you know, could be millions of dollars to buy just a crummy house to tear down to enlarge your lot or a park or whatever. So you could see how that would be effective and cost effective. But we had a great meeting and toured Crystal Lake and saw some sites, made some good connections. We also went into the Nature Center. We talked about the museum grant that's also coming up. So we kind of laid some groundwork there. And Kathy, that we were encouraged about all the work and variety of projects we did with the museum grant. It is a super unique grant. It can build boardwalks or exhibits, you know, so we have that flexibility of how we did BC Woods Boardwalk. We did interior exhibits. We do an outdoor exhibit. So we're gearing up, I believe, our next museum grant is going to focus on the Meadowbrook Interpretive Center, the outdoor interpretive elements for that site. If we had a little more time today, because they did go to Champaign Park District, we would have wished them over to Meadowbrook, but we didn't get that chance, so we'll work on that next. But pleased to do that, and got a rare opportunity to do that. Today we also met with Jared Scheineman from Campfire Concepts to hear the first round of our focus groups for aquatics and for the gardening and interesting, it was a great process. What I think the outcomes for us is really targeted, detailed needs that we can directly approach instead of scattershot, well, let's try this, let's try that. We have information, and we have already some discussions. How can we improve that? There's probably a few things we're not easily gonna be able to change. You know, deer predation at Meadowbrook is still gonna be a challenge to us, but can we do some other things to improve our customer service and touches with our long-term gardening program there? I think we learned some new things at the Victory Park site that I didn't fully realize. So our plan is to come back to you all and share that information. So we'll be doing that, scheduling that. And then lastly, we did receive a number of support letters for the park grant. We received letters from our state legislators, coalition, Champaign County Public Health Department, certainly the city through the mayor, Champaign County government through Darlene Kleppman, and still waiting for the school district, but anticipate that coming. So it's nice to be able to get that level of support. Everybody anticipates what our need is and want to get behind that effort. So we thank all those groups. Certainly we could have asked for more. The grant doesn't require you to provide 20 letters or 30. So we tried to add a few that we thought would be impactful and help show support here. Can answer any other questions if you have any.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Tim. Moving on to the president's report, upcoming meetings. There's UPDAC on the 28th of January, which is UPD Finances 101, which might be interesting to attend for those that are interested. February 4th study session, wage and benefit study. We've been very eager to see where we stand. Huh? Yeah, but yeah. And then February 11th, we'll have our annual recreation statistics report, semi-annual review of status regarding strategic initiatives, and we're hoping there may be some bid approvals at that point.
Pretty sure we'll have the program guide bid ready.
But by then, okay. I don't have anything else to add in that regard. Moving
I
on.
was just going to add on, if it's just to highlight, as you know, the Forest Preserve will be hosting the legislative
Oh, yeah.
breakfast that we recommended a few years ago that all three of our units should rotate.
Right. And
Getting their turn, certainly helpful. We love having it, but there's considerable work and effort, so it's nice to still support work because the work is on the agency approach.
And where are their headquarters? I have no.
Will it be at the headquarters or, okay.
I just received information from Maryland today, so we'll be getting that out.
Great,
Right.
good.
Seems early, but March 10th is coming up.
well, it's coming up.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I will not be able to attend that. Yeah.
Also, sorry, I just noticed this, but the wage and benefit study won't be in February. It's
It
pushed
won't?
to March.
Oh, it's been
Yeah.
pushed back. Well,
Alex is out of town that week, so we didn't invite the contractors to come without her here, so.
Okay,
Okay.
well, all right. Sure we'll have something else of
Yeah,
of
we
note.
do. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but.
Moving on to liaison reports, the finance study group meeting that was scheduled for last Friday is, I think died a flu death.
I believe it did.
So, and I don't believe we've rescheduled that at this point.
Probably just assume we'll need our, probably need to reschedule.
Yeah, we should try to do that. Yeah. So, anything further from the policy study group, other than what we've got on the agenda for tonight?
We do have a meeting scheduled now.
Yeah.
I think it's in March.
3rd.
Yeah.
March before the
Okay.
study session.
Yeah, prior to the study session in March.
And the Parks Foundation, no meeting?
And Parks Foundation, as Tim indicated, did not meet yesterday because of some people being out of town, so
Yeah.
nothing to report.
All right. And the UPDAC Planning Study Group, I assume also is awaiting a meeting. Okay. All righty, that takes us on to old business, and we've already done item A, and we didn't remove anything from the consent agenda, so we're into new business. Item A, action to approve ordinance 2020-01, revising the personnel manual.
So there was an update to the state law regarding the sexual harassment policy that we approved last year, that now the law also has to cover acts of sexual harassment between or among commissioners. So
That's us.
we added the recommended paragraph that IEPD provided to our existing sexual harassment policy to be compliant with the law. That is where we're at with it. I know when we originally presented this policy a year ago, the commissioners were interested in amending it in other ways, some of the language. We're still open to that, and we're open to discussing that further, but at least in the meantime, we have to be compliant while we continue to, we're happy to revise policies at any time, and we haven't heard any feedback from staff that it's not an appropriate policy. So, I mean, and we train on it annually now, so,
LaShonda did reach out and asked, you know, there are other types of policies that include commissioners, and it's more rare, but I think we're probably gonna see more of that, just looking when we go to, you know, the conference to talk about liability, it's based on cases, so when things happen, then you go to policy and start putting things in place.
right, and this sexual harassment is everywhere now. I mean, it's just, it's a big,
Well, we're training our seasonal staff
Mhm.
this year for the first time on this.
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah.
It's at that level, so I guess my point, including the commissioners, everyone's at.
They're just trying to be inclusive.
Well, and not only that, but there have been cases very recently in the news about elected officials that have been, are no longer elected officials because of sexual harassment. Not necessarily commissioners, but certainly people who have been elected. I mean, nobody's immune.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sort of odd, we even agree, you know, these are personnel manuals, but when they reference commissioners, so sort of, there's so few of that, but I guess, as Katie said, let's get compliant, we can certainly amend
Yeah.
it later. if
Yeah.
that are comfortable.
Yeah.
But I think we have to comply with the law.
yeah, the only other area of our personnel policy that I know commissioners are mentioned is in our, in the fitness and wellness benefits and
Oh, right,
discounts for programming.
right.
But, I mean, that's the only other section, so,
So it didn't seem reasonable to have a commissioner manual.
right.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
For these,
Yeah.
you know, if it gets to where there's dual everything, we'll probably start separating out, but hopefully this will take care of that. Most important thing, of course, be talking with your staff, training your staff, communicating that message, so.
Yes, prevention is more important than, than the
Yes.
cleaning up the
No
mess.
kidding.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions about the suggested amendment, or?
No, I move that we approve ordinance 2020-01, revising the personnel manual of the Urbana Park District.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, starting at the right.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and that carries unanimously with... there was nothing removed from the consent agenda under new business either, so we're down to comments from commissioners.
Actually, I had a question on the beds at Victory Park. They're going to be more handicap beds, is that right?
Yeah,
What are we doing?
two fell apart. The wood decayed, and part of the feedback we got today in the focus groups is that they like to see them returned.
Uh-huh.
They're very popular. There was a time in District Meadow Park gardening where they weren't getting used, but it seems
Right.
like in general, there's interest in them, so I expect we'll be replacing those, and probably the ones that are out there today, we are also having some issues that are beginning to decay, so we'll look to replace those as well, I expect. As a follow-up to our focus group meetings today, we want to develop an action plan for each of the areas and review it with staff, and then ultimately with groups and focus groups to let them know what we heard and if our course of
Yeah,
actions
yeah.
are on target.
Will we get a chance to see Jared's report?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. that
Okay.
Today was our first round with
Right.
staff, and then we'd like to bring it back to,
Okay, good.
you know, in a study session, or
Yeah, that would make most sense, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It takes a little while because there's 2 topics.
Yeah, yeah.
And it took probably 3 hours today.
And was he happy with the,
Yeah, I think
I don't mean the results, but how the, yeah, participation. Mhm.
discussion. But, you know, as you would imagine, there's always differing opinions within those groups, so that's always a challenge for us. If, let's say, 100% of people all, we all agree, that's easier when people have different opinions.
It's always the bell curve.
How do you navigate through their, do things?
Yeah.
But the two things that were interesting is, one, he said that people came to these with strong kind of items or agenda items that didn't have in the strategic plan. The other is that he said that a lot of people were concerned that these programs might be going away.
Oh, well, good. I mean, I mean good in that they like it well enough that they have a concern that it might be going away.
Right, so we were obviously able to say no, we're just trying to improve and
Good.
fine-tune these. It was interesting to me, I didn't want to get into the discussion, but at the aquatics, at least in the indoor, a lot of the topics were on water temperature. It's not a surprise to any of us.
Yeah, yeah.
About that, but that's an example of where it's probably gonna be challenging because, essentially the facility was built as a competitive swim facility for the high school swim and diving teams. And then you offer, layer in other recreational activities, and so you have to find a balance. And so we talked about ways we can start to approach that, but it's probably one of those topics, will continue to be discussed. But I guess on the other side, if that's one of your major issues, we can put that on. So our customer service is terrible and our pricing's wrong and it's inappropriately designed
Right.
space. So I think focusing on accentuating areas we need to pay attention to. But as Derek mentioned, I think there was all the focus groups an appreciation of having it and appreciating all the effort that goes into it. And so just to make it work a little better is probably the one time.
Right, right.
I think it's a very positive thing. The other thing we talked about is maybe we should consider on a regular basis, look at areas of questioning or area of interest and do those deep dives where you take the time and a little bit of resource to interface with your public and ask them, how's it working? What do you?
Yep, I think that's a really good idea.
And because I think we have some go-tos now, information, instead of, why don't we try this? And so you're guessing. a
Right,
little bit
right,
instead
yep.
of, let's focus on what they're asking us to focus on, and then the rest is good to go.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I've thought a lot about the water temperature issue. And I ran into somebody in the grocery store the other day, and I haven't been back for a while. And essentially, her attitude was, and I think that she's probably right, is that the water temperature is as it's indoors is as it's going to be, and that we have to find a way to live with that because there isn't a way to change it because of the nature of the facility.
Well, and it's a lot harder to change the temperature of a water tank than it is there in a room.
Right, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
You can't just turn it around from 1 hour to the next.
Right, and I think that in this particular instance, I think the difficulty is that it's the deep water aerobics that I'm guessing that the majority of the complaints come from there because that water is definitely colder than the water in the lanes. I mean, I'm not all that sensitive, but I certainly can tell when I move from one to the other, and it's just a matter of physics, I think, and I don't think that there's any way to fix that. And I mean, my personal opinion is that we need to maybe look harder at the offering of the class, because as we've talked among ourselves, the harder we work, the warmer we are. And maybe to remind people that cold water burns more calories, that's thing too. And I know that there are a number of people now who have bought essentially short wetsuits. And to just give people, remind people of that option, because people do like those classes. And I think if we can't change it, we have to find ways to make it better and more acceptable to the patrons. And I think I can think of a few things that might help, because the water temperature just isn't going to be any different, really.
I think Michael hit it on the head. You can change it, but not rapidly to meet the programmatic this hour to the next hour.
Yeah, and I think people I don't think that's the problem. And I think, and, right, I mean, do you think there is no way to fix that?
Well, I mean, just like Tim said, it was a wide range. We had people there complaining it was too hot.
I'd like to meet them.
So, I mean, also it was mentioned that there was people that were in their 70s that said it was too warm. They'd like it cooler.
Really?
for
Now,
their-
were they lap swimming or were they?
Lap swimming.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But see, that's the point, then it's because it's the more exercise,
Mhm.
the warmer they are.
We're working through what we heard today, but I think there's
Yeah.
also some communication tools that we can use
Mhm,
to,
mhm.
from a customer service standpoint,
Right,
make
right.
sure people are aware of what the water temperature is, or
Right.
if there's a problem and why it's lower, and making sure that communication is transferred all the way through lifeguards to maintenance to aquatics manager.
Right.
So there's things we're gonna be looking at, whether it's a display of some sort as well. So,
Yeah.
but, no, I don't think there's
Yeah,
a solution to
don't
make
think-
the water temperature move every hour.
No, or every 12 hours.
Right.
Well, I think the biggest thing I learned when we had the problems with the old outdoor pool was that people are understanding of problems when they know what's happening. And we were out for dinner the other night, and there was six of us, and they only had one table for 6, and the waiter coming back to us and saying, "They've paid, they're just not leaving, I'm really sorry." And it made such a huge difference because he wasn't ignoring us. He was understanding that we were waiting for that table. And I said to Fred when we left, it's the same thing as the pool. We weren't anywhere near as unhappy as we might have been because he kept telling us what was going on. And I think that's almost always the key to dealing with the public when you're providing a service. And so I think that's, if we can approach it from that direction, since we can't really fix it, we can't get the people to leave the table, or we can't get the water warmer or cooler for them, then.
It's funny you should say that, because I think in the gardening side of things too, information was a key element.
Yeah.
It was interesting,
Yep.
because when asked how do you like to get information, it was across the whole spectrum.
Uh-huh.
Mail,
Yep.
email, call me, text me.
Put up a sign in my garden.
Type of thing. So again, trying to get a program
Yep.
that works, that you can meet all those levels of need.
Yep, yep.
But the key thing is it's information.
It is. I really, truly believe that. Yep.
So I think, again, we thought it was very productive, because we probably have a couple of other intense key areas to focus to address our efforts. So
Mhm, mhm.
we're overall pleased.
Well, I wanted to commend Keith and his team for taking advantage of the winter weather, mild winter weather, and putting in a really nice fence in a hurry around the farmhouse, the backyard of the farmhouse. It looks great, and it gives our staff member and family that live there some privacy.
Good.
They did it. I was amazed at how quickly it went up. Yeah. they
It was
did a
nice to read
job.
his report because it was too lousy to go out and work, so they just cut all the wood up so they were ready to go.
Yeah, and they, I mean, it was boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
done. They did a great job.
Yep, yep.
Any other commissioner comments? Hearing none, I think we've exhausted our agenda. I don't know, declare us adjourned.